ladies. I am Rachel LaFleur. I am married to a New Orleans Theological Baptist Seminary student. My husband is a CACSKI recipient. He's a bivocational preacher up here in Northwest Louisiana of Carmel Baptist Church. We've been here for 4 years now, and we just kind of got thrown or plopped into this. He started preaching before he completed seminary, and I didn't have any kind of preparation whatsoever for being a preacher's wife, short of being a preacher's granddaughter and a youth minister's daughter, which kind of, in a way prepares you, but it's a whole different story when you're the wife of a preacher. So I am very thankful for this course that has been presented to us, and I'm thankful for the technology to allow me to partake in the class even though I can't be there with you. I would love to continue to see the faces of women in the classroom as I'm hearing their names, and it's been nice to see a couple of your faces. But I'm just, like I said, I'm thankful for the technology and the opportunities afforded to us through the scholarships and through the college and everything. So today, let me take this off because there's a huge glare. Today I'm going to be bringing to you, it's not necessarily a devotional, it's a book that I've loved over the years, Loving God with All Your Mind. It's backwards, by Elizabeth George. She's also the woman who has brought the A Woman After God's Own Heart series. But I will be bringing a condensed kind of version of one of the topics she brings up, which I think is very befitting of our class, since our theme verse right now is Jeremiah 29:11. That's the verse that goes with this lesson. So the topic is living out God's plan. The subtopic is enduring difficult times, and with that, I'll start reading. God has a plan for you. Oh, I have a plan is exactly what God is telling the Israelites in Jeremiah 29:11. To the children of Israel who had been uprooted from their homes and carried away as captives to Babylon, and to you and me as well, God declares, I know the thoughts that I have toward you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. Another translation of the Bible puts it, I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope, as according to the NASB. Although the heartbroken prophet Jeremiah prophesied doom for these stiff-necked people who had turned away from God, he also preached hope to these captives, hope that was based on the promise God made to them as recorded in Jeremiah 29:11. Having announced their sentence of 70 years of bondage to Babylon, Jeremiah then told these displaced Jews how to survive those years. And there's good news. Jeremiah's words of instruction and how-tos can help us too. When we find ourselves enduring difficult times or in places or predicaments that we don't choose for ourselves, to remind yourself of God's message to your heart during hard and difficult times, take heart and to memory these ABCs. A, acknowledge God's hand. According to Jeremiah, we need to first recognize God's hand in whatever is happening. Speaking through Jeremiah, God told the Israelites 4 times, I have caused you to be carried away from Jerusalem to Babylon. Captives. God explained that it wasn't the Babylonians alone who had taken them away from their homeland into exile. No, God himself allowed it. Likewise, whatever circumstances you and I find ourselves in, we need to remember that God has allowed us to be there. We may wonder, what happened? And the situation may not be our ideal, but it's in God's hands. Your life is not out of control, and nothing has just randomly happened to put you where you are. B, bloom where you're planted. We are to bloom and to grow where we are planted. What does this mean? We are to go on loving the Lord with our whole being, our heart, soul, mind, and strength. We are to go on fulfilling his purposes for us wherever we find ourselves, no matter how undesirable or unexpected our circumstances. The prophet Jeremiah told the cursed and bewildered people of Israel exactly how to live their lives during exile. He said, and pay special attention to the verbs, build houses and dwell in them, plant gardens and eat their fruit, take wives and beget sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons and give your daughters to husbands. so that they may bear sons and daughters, that you may increase and be increased there, and be not diminished. Jeremiah 29:5-6. The priorities of building solid, long-lasting, and ongoing marriages, families, and homes and lives were to be their focus, not their pain. God called the captives to make homes, plant crops, bear fruit, and in the land of their affliction. Life was to go on for them, and life is to go on for you and me too in our afflictions. Jeremiah's how-tos was this: keep on keeping on, keep on building, keep on functioning, keep on planting. Live, bloom, grow, increase. Don't merely sit around being sad or depressed, waiting for things to change or get better. Make things better. C. Concentrate on promises. On the heels of Jeremiah's specific instructions to the Israelites came this pronouncement of God's promise to their return to their homeland. After 70 years are completed at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good work towards you, and cause you to return to this place. I will bring you back from your captivity. I will gather you from all nations and from all of the places where I have driven you, and I will bring you to the place in which I will cause you to be carried away captive. Jeremiah 10:14. In the meantime, God comforted his children with these words: I know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you future and a hope. Wherever these misplaced people were discouraged, they were to find their hope and their strength to endure in God and in his promises. And so we are. The plans God has for us, plans for welfare and not calamity, for good and not for evil, to give us a future and a hope and a source for real confidence and reassurance, no matter what challenges, hurts, or questions we face along the way. Where do you find your focus and attention when things fall apart? When you wonder, what happened over there? No matter what is occurring in your life, concentrate on God's promises. And D, do something useful. While you're in your difficult times, ever confident in God's promises and outcomes of your trials, you can do some useful things. Wherever you are, which is where God has sovereignly placed you, you can serve God, your family, and his people. Sure, there are a lot of things you don't know about your present condition, but one thing you do know is that God calls us to serve him and his people, according to Matthew 20:26-28. So serve away. Roll up your sleeves and serve God and others in present, even in your hard times. The captives in Babylon were to settle down and live life as normally as possible under their circumstances. To build houses, marry, multiply, and pray. In other words, the children of Israel were to do something useful. They were to serve God in their marriages, their families, their community, and their businesses. Such efforts and usefulness would help ward off depression and discouragement and give each day purpose and fulfillment. That's our assignment too. Wherever we are, however good or bad our circumstances are. If we are married, God calls us to serve our spouses. If we are parents, we are to nurture and love our children. And each of us, married or single, is also called to serve the body of Christ, his church. These few lines of poetry express our assignment from God to do something useful while in our troubles. We cannot see beyond the door. We know not what he has in store. We can but bow our heads and pray for strength to serve him day by day. And in closing for this chapter, she says, and now I want to bring our attention back to God, remembering our gracious God and the promises of his plan for you. Focusing your thoughts on his purposes for your life can establish and anchor you in your emotions. It's also a way to love him with all of your mind. Panic, despair, nervousness, bewilderment, fear. God speaks against emotions like these in his word. In fact, when the circumstances of life might lead to uncertainty and confusion, the bright promise of Jeremiah 29:11 gives us certainty, clarity, and hope. My dear friend, God has a plan for your welfare. When you wonder and ask, but what happened over there? He shouts back to your thoughts, Jeremiah 29:11. Oh, I have a plan. The path for your life may zigzag, twist, and turn, but God's promised to you a hope and a future. With this promise, you don't need to know the future. Instead, you can be content and at peace, knowing, trusting, and loving the Father whose plans are good and not for evil, and will be well. All will be well. You can be secure in the fact His promise is for you. Therefore, you can endure to the end of your difficult times, and you can build and bear fruit in the meantime. So that was just, like I said, a condensed version of that chapter. It's a really good book. If anybody's interested in reading it, I would encourage it. But that was my devotional for tonight. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the chat board.